There are a lot of Warbonds and Helldivers too, and if you're allergic to grass like me, you might have them all completed no problem. But what about normal people, or new players, or returning players who might not have everything unlocked and are wondering which ones out of the bunch are the most worth it? Don't worry, I got you. Today I'm going to rank every Warbond in Helldivers 2 from the worst to the best, with the goal of giving current players a better idea of which ones to spend their hard-earned super creds on. I'm going to be ranking this purely on CMV, current meta value, not on fashion or aesthetic or the amount that each individual Warbond brought to the table, just how strong the options in each Warbond are in relation to the current meta. All right, let's go. Starting off at the very bottom, we have Chemical Agents, which unfortunately is the newest Warbond that just came out not too long ago. It does have some quality fashion, by the way, but again, that is not what I'm currently ranking out here today. Very quickly, going through what the Warbond offers and how good it currently is, we'll kick things off with the Sterilizer, aka the gas gun stratagem. I'll admit, the new gas mechanics are definitely funny and I enjoyed using them for a bit, but the gun has extremely short range and requires you to spray it a lot, leaving you fairly vulnerable when trying to use it. If I'm being honest, I'd rather hit enemies with real, actual hard-hitting damage at close range, maybe like with a flamethrower or any shotgun, as opposed to hitting them with gas and watching them attack each other for the lulz. I think the gas grenade, also in that Warbond, is a slightly better way of doing this. You can apply gas from much further away, and it immediately covers a fairly large area, as opposed to the gas gun, which again you have to really work hard to spread around at near point blank range, which is dangerous. The portable war crime buddy, aka the guard dog gas drone, is slightly better than the Sterilizer IMO. Only reason I say that is because while it's out there crop dusting enemies automatically, you can spend your time shooting enemies with an actual gun and doing damage yourself. Again though, I'd so much rather have a drone that hits enemies with actual bullets as opposed to meme gas. The P11 stim pistol is really interesting on paper, and if they ever decide to buff that gun, the entire Warbond would probably go way up in viability right away. Until then though, no. If you don't know, you can heal other players by shooting them with the stim gun, but not yourself, which I think is goddamn ridiculous, by the way. It's also kind of hard to shoot players in the heat of combat with everybody running and diving around, especially if you and your teammates aren't all in a voice chat together. Also, you can't heal teammates if they have a shield generator pack equipped, which I genuinely think was Arrowhead's cute little attempt at making players use the shield gen stratagem less. They're not subtle. The armor in Chemical Agents, while badass looking for sure, really isn't crucial or top tier in my opinion. They all just give you additional resistance to gas damage and effects, which is nice, but gas isn't used a ton to begin with. TLDR, I'd say get the Warbond if you don't care about the meta and want to F around with gas, or if you dig the fashion. But in my opinion, absolutely nothing really worth getting and using here right now, and for that reason, I'm putting Chemical Agents in D tier. Moving right along, Viper's Commandos, the jungle-themed Warbond that came out in June 2024. Vipers doesn't have a ton of options in it, but there is some stuff here worth trying out, and there's a sleeper option that I think could go very hard if certain things happen in the future of the game, which I'll get to in a minute. Kicking things off in Vipers, we have the AR-23A Liberator Carbine. In short, it's basically an exact clone of the normal Liberator, but the only difference is the AR-23A has a way higher rate of fire. Naturally, because it fires faster, it's harder to control and has kind of wild recoil. That's really about it. Liberator Carbine definitely ain't horrible, but there's a bunch of other primaries I'd rather use if I'm being completely honest. Moving right along, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but I gotta tell you that throwing knives are a complete meme. Yeah, you get 8 of them, whoop-de-doo. While they do respectable single target damage and can stun stalkers right in their tracks, I just don't care at all. So many other weapons have been buffed lately, we have plenty else we can use to dish out higher, better damage. I mean, go ahead and use them if you're feeling silly or if you want to style on enemies, but I'd much rather have a grenade that deals quality AoE damage or omega single target damage, so no thank you. The experimental infusion booster is something I have mixed feelings on in general. In short, when you take a stim, you temporarily boost up your movement speed and incoming damage reduction. According to various sources I've looked into, the buff has about a 10-second duration, give or take, and the effects seem to be around a 15-ish% buff, up from the standard of 12.5%. I'd really love to triple check those numbers in game, but getting exact DR values in a game like Helldivers is phenomenally hard since there's no damage numbers on screen or anything like that. Experimental infusion is a really interesting booster idea. In my opinion, the best boosters in the game right now are currently vitality enhancement, stamina enhancement, and the end all be all you're literally throwing if you don't bring this into an operation, Hellpod Space Optimization. My favorite runner-up choice is usually either muscle enhancement or localization confusion, depending on the planet and the mission. UAV is also nice too. But because HSO is so good, a lot of players have been asking Arrowhead, myself included, to just make that booster part of the base kit. And if Arrowhead ever decides to actually do that, I think the viability of experimental infusion would go way up. Again, it's only a small boost, but helping you get out of a tight situation is really nothing to sneeze at. Like I said though, it has heavy competition in the booster department right now, but we'll see what happens to Hellpod booster moving forward. Finally, the weapon I thought would be just kind of a joke, but is actually rock solid, is the SG-22 Bushwhacker. It's a shotgun with only 3 shots in the mag, but not only does it hit like a truck, you use it as a secondary weapon, which in my opinion is great. It packs a lot of power for a secondary weapon and lets you pull off a ton of get the fuck out of my face emergency plays. Believe it or not, it's actually one of my most enjoyed secondary weapons in the game right now. The Viper Commando's armor isn't terrible. I don't much care about the extra melee damage, but I do slightly enjoy the better weapon handling with less drag on movement. Certain weapons appreciate that more than others. TLDR, while I really do enjoy the Bushwhacker, I think people put way too much stock in experimental infusion considering how strong other boosters in the game are right now. If the Hellpod booster ever gets rolled into the base kit of the game, we can have an updated conversation, but until that day ever comes, if it ever comes, I'm putting Viper Commandos in C tier. Next up, we come to Steeled Veterans, aka the original premium Warbond, and I do think 1 or 2 options here are quasi-viable right now. But real quick, I love snack food, which is why I'm happy as hell to talk about Chomps, sponsor of today's video. Chomp sticks are delicious as hell. I actually reached out to them on this one. True story. Chomps are a convenient source of protein, perfect for on-the-go snacking or just a midday pick-me-up. These really are the perfect snack. If you've ever watched me stream, you know that I sometimes just straight up forget to eat. Hey man, grinders gotta grind. But now, very gladly, I will be adding Chomps into my routine, midstream snacking rotation. They are awesome. But hey, even if you don't stream, Chomps make a great on-the-go snack. Take them with you when you travel, put them in your kid's lunchbox for school, or just munch on them whenever you want. No mess, easy to grab and eat, and 10 to 12 grams of protein per stick. In fact, Chomps is all sustainably sourced. Their products contain no sugar or harmful ingredients and are free of the top 9 allergens. Oh, and if you're looking for a particular flavor recommendation, I'm team jalapeno all day, but they have a ton of great flavors, including original beef and original turkey, jalapeno, sea salt, salt and pepper venison, Italian style taco, and more. But hey, you tell me your favorite flavor down in the comment section, and while you're down there, hit up my link in the pinned comment to learn more or to find one of the 20,000 stores near you that carry Chomps. And again, big thank you to Chomps for sponsoring today's video. All right, we back. The AR-23C Liberator Concussive is an auto rifle variant that allows you to stun enemies in place when hitting them with shots, which on paper is actually very helpful. The only downside is that the AR-23C just doesn't shoot very fast and is hard outclassed by another gun that we'll get to later. The G10 incendiary grenade is okay. Spread a little fire on the floor and enemies will just burn right up. I think a few other grenade options outshine the G10 at the moment. It was built for crowd control, but overall I think the G16 Impact is miles better by comparison in that department. The SG-225IE Breaker Incendiary is pretty fun, but I do definitely think it's outshined by its bigger brother, the original Breaker shotgun, which for the record is eating extremely good right now after the most recent buff. The Flexible Reinforcement Budget Booster is unfortunately one of the weaker boosters in the game. Last I checked, it only gave you about a 10% shorter time on redeployment when your team is completely out. So unless you're really riding the struggle bus, which you shouldn't be because so many things just got buffed hardcore, this thing will likely not be very helpful to you or your team. I'd rather someone on my team have a different booster than this one 100 times out of 100. The 2 options in the Steeled Veterans Warbond I actually like are the Senator and the JAR 5 Dominator. The Dominator is a gun I haven't used in a hot minute, but was actually fairly surprised when I used it. It hits like a truck, and as long as you have a secondary weapon that you can use to mop up smaller trash efficiently, I think the JAR 5 is a quality option. Medium armor penetrating, good on bugs and on bots. The Senator is a great secondary weapon that I still occasionally use to this day. It doesn't fire very fast, but I sometimes bring it purely for the medium armor penetration factor alone, which again, great at taking out certain enemies. The armor in Steeled Veterans is fine in my book. They all come with the servo assisted trait, which lets you throw things a little bit further and gives you 50% better limb health. Not bad. TLDR, even though the majority of the bond is just okay, I think the JAR 5 and the Senator are quality weapons worth checking out for sure. Based on their strength alone, I'm putting Steeled Veterans in the B tier. Moving on, we come to Freedom's Flame, which dropped in August of 2024. Freedom's Flame was the all-fire warbond, which had really bad timing because it came out just days after Arrowhead nerfed fire damage. However, all of that got reversed in the Make Helldivers 2 Fun Again patch, so now Freedom's Flame is looking a little better than it was before. The SG-451 Cookout is a gun I actually kind of enjoy, even though deep down I feel like I like the Punisher a little bit more. I really want to buy whoever made the Firebomb Hellpods booster a drink. Not because I think it's good and we're celebrating. I actually think it's one of, if not the worst boosters in the entire game. But rather, I want to buy them a drink because I know on paper it probably sounded like a really great idea, but it just doesn't do it for me at all, and I feel bad. 99% of the time, it serves no purpose other than accidentally burning your teammates. And yeah, you can use them offensively, but like, why? Just shoot your gun, my dude. No need to throw my damn resupply into a crowd of bugs for a fucking meme. The P72 Crisper and the Flam 66 Torture are really what make Freedom's Flame viable for me. With the current buff to fire damage, those weapons are feeling quite good right now. And yeah, I know that we already have a flamethrower stratagem in the game, but the Flam and the Crisper exist just so you can use fire weapon damage without needing to spend a stratagem, and that alone I really appreciate. The Freedom's Flame armor all comes with Inflammable, allowing you to take less fire damage overall, which I think does come in handy when you're using fire weapons. TLDR, fire damage is currently fun and viable. If it ever gets nerfed, well, we'll talk, but for right now, I'm putting Freedom's Flame in B tier alongside Steeled Veterans. Next, and I know this is going to be oddly controversial for some people, Polar Patriots. I'm gonna admit it right up front. My reason for this warbond being above the others mentioned so far is almost entirely due to the existence of one gun, which we'll get to shortly. In the meantime, let's go over everything else. The Motivational Shocks booster allows divers to recover faster after being slowed by attacks. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really notice Motivational very much when it kicks in, nor do I miss it when no one has brought it to the fire team. Although I do use the Shield Generator pack fairly often, which I still feel is quite good. Let me tell you, if the Shield Generator pack ever gets hard nerfed or just becomes not godly, I may see if Motivational Shocks goes up in viability, but put that on the back burner for right now. The AR-61 Tenderizer is actually pretty good for an auto rifle. It only gets light armor penetration, but it hits harder than any other AR in the game and has a respectable 600 RPM fire rate. If you haven't used it in a minute, I'd say try it out. It won't blow you away, but it's a fine weapon for sure. The G13 Incendiary Impact is an interesting hybrid concoction, but I do like it more than the regular Incendiary for being able to close bug holes and 0 fuse time. Not one of my 2 favorite grenades in the game, but more on that later. The Plas 1 Purifier is honestly not that great. I feel like it hits hard and has good explosive AoE damage, but the charge up requirement is IMO really annoying. Thankfully, we do have confirmation from Arrowhead that the gun will be getting buffed in the next major patch. Apparently, it'll be able to fire normally like the Plas 1 Scorcher currently does, and then if you want to charge it up, you'll be able to do so. I honestly love that idea, and if they don't change the stats of the weapon at all with that change, that would be an easy A-tier weapon against bots on its own, but more on that another day when we get the buffed version. The P113 Verdict Pistol is not bad, but more like a who cares level weapon to me. I don't think it does anything particularly better than any other secondary weapon in the game. And finally, we come to the star of the Polar Patriots Warbond, in my opinion, the SMG 72 Pummeler. Remember earlier in the video, I mentioned the AR-23C being fun to stun enemies with, but hard outclassed by another option? Well, meet that option. The Pummeler does the same amount of damage per bullet as the AR-23C, but it fires way faster. And even though the mag is smaller, I much prefer the Pummeler, and honestly, I think it's one of the most effective Terminated killing primaries in the entire game. Even Stalkers get completely shut down, and it's a weapon I find myself returning to a lot on any difficulty level. Armor-wise, Polar Patriots has 2 heavies, one with servo assisted and and one with fortified, but also a light armor set with scout, which is honestly a great armor perk. If you don't have the SC30 Trailblazer scout set, this is a quality piece of armor right here for the scout perk alone. TLDR, between the current viability of the pummeler, which again I think a lot of people sleep on, and the soon to be buffed purifier, I'm very confident with Polar Patriots in B tier. Moving on, we come to Cutting Edge, which dropped way back in March, and it has some solid options that I still enjoy using. Jumping around the Warbond a little bit, we have the G23 Stun Grenade. Still not my favorite grenade on the shelf, but the stun grenade does what it was made to do. Stun enemies so you can either get away from them or annihilate them while they just sit there having a seizure. I do think the viability of the stun grenade has gone down recently just a little bit because we're so powerful right now, we don't really need to stun things as we have copious amounts of offense, but still not a bad option. The SG8P Punisher is oddly fun, especially in short automaton operations. Definitely has a little bit of a funky shot trajectory, but respectable crowd control. The Arc 12 Blitzer is a weapon I originally didn't like, but have found myself warming up to it as of late. Slow rate of fire, but I do love the fact that it not only hits hard, but has unlimited ammo and has medium armor penetrating baked in. I think if you can be careful to not annihilate your teammates, it's a solid close range weapon for sure. The Laz 7 Dagger isn't a god tier weapon, but it's a reliable secondary based purely on the fact that if you never overheat it, you have unlimited ammo. Fun for small time trash clearing, and I like it. Now we get to what I feel are the two best options offered in the Cutting Edge Warbond. First up is the Localization Confusion Booster, which increases time between enemy encounters. The community research on this perk is a wild rabbit hole, but when it was last examined in great detail, it was found that on higher level missions, you can delay the time between reinforcement calls up to almost a full minute. That's pretty damn good, and I find that aside from the big three mentioned earlier, Localization Confusion is an option I frequently ask people to bring as the fourth booster if they tell me they're not sure what else to bring. Definitely a quality option, still holds very strong in the current meta. The other option I really enjoy using is the LAS 16 Sickle Primary Weapon. This is a damn fine primary that if you haven't used, you really owe it to yourself to check out. Much like its little brother, the Dagger, if you never overheat the weapon, you just won't ever run out of ammo or need to reload, which is awesome. It's also not a laser weapon though. It fires bullets, but overheats like a laser. Kinda hard to describe if you've never used it before, but this is legit a beast weapon, and I love using it for just the sheer fact that I never have to bug my teammates about resupplies ever. Between this and the newly buffed Arc Thrower, you can carve through hundreds of enemies in a single mission without ever needing to resupply or reload. Incredible combo, recommended highly, love it to death. Armor-wise, Cutting Edge is admittedly kinda weak. The armor features the Electrical Conduit perk, which really you should only be wearing if your teammate is some half-baked jabroni who doesn't know how to wield arc properly. TLDR, even with mid-armor, Localization Confusion Booster, and multiple weapon options that never run out of ammo if used correctly, including my beloved Sickle, I am putting Cutting Edge into A tier. 6 down, 2 to go. Next up, we have Democratic Detonation, which came out in April. Let's kick it off with the BR-14 Adjudicator. Not incredible, but IMO one of the better ARs in the game. Packs a wallop and can punch through medium armor. Yeah, the recoil is horrific, but they've toned it down a little bit since it was introduced, and if you just have a little bit of trigger control, this gun can serve you well. Next up, we have the CB9 Exploding Crossbow, which was a horrible meme when it first was introduced into the game. But now though, it's still pretty much a meme, but at least a more respectable one. I do think you can actually now use the crossbow to varying degrees of success. Still, not what we're here for though. The R36 Eruptor has been buffed back to its former glory and is now basically, we have the autocannon at home. Shots are both explosive and basically hit with the same level of crowd control as a frag grenade. Extremely poor handling and a small magazine, but a fine weapon IMO. Still not at the good stuff, continue to bear with me. Expert Extraction Pilot is straight up not a good booster. Last I checked, it shaves 15% off your end of mission extraction timer, which can be handy if you have a planet modifier that makes extraction way longer, but other booster options are way better. And if you're thinking, wow, if everything in Democratic Detonation is so goddamned mid, then why the hell is it ranked so high? Great question. Everything left we have yet to talk about, in my opinion, is quite good. Starting with the GP31 grenade pistol. Yeah, you can use it for emergency ad clear if you so wish. It deals 650 damage per shot, more than a goddamn impact grenade, which is quite good. But the grenade pistol's real talent is being being able to shut down fabricators and especially bug holes with ease. Several other weapons can do this. It's not completely unique to the grenade pistol, but the grenade pistol is a secondary weapon, meaning there's no need to burn through precious primary ammo or stratagem weapon ammo. One shot, hole closed, GG. These days I find myself running the grenade pistol very frequently on tournament missions for the hole closing viability alone. I think the weapon is excellent and I recommend it highly. And next up, y'all knew it was coming, the G123 thermite grenade. The thermite grenade, in my opinion, is one of the biggest winners from the recent Make Helldivers Fun Again patch, hands down. Is your stratagem weapon or your orbital railgun on cooldown? Fear not. Hulks, tanks, chargers, and bile titans all have nightmares about thermite grenades after the latest buff. All of them straight up get demolished by a thermite grenade. Literally one of the best throwable options in the game right now, incredibly good. The armor of democratic detonation is actually pretty viable. I'm not so much a fan of heavy armor in general, but there's both a light and medium armor set with the engineering kit trait, which I'm a fan of. TLDR, with arguably one of the best grenade options in the game right now, not to mention the extremely handy grenade pistol secondary option and all-around viable armor, I'm putting democratic detonation in A tier. And finally, we come to our very last Warbond, Helldivers Mobilize, which isn't really fair to include in the tier list because it's not like the other Warbonds. It launched alongside the game itself and is way larger than all the others. But if we're talking about which Warbonds have the most current banger options, I literally have to include it because Helldivers Mobilize has a ton of great stuff. I'll try to keep this short and sweet, and because this is the largest Warbond by far, I'll only talk about the best stuff on the table here. The P19 Redeemer is a high-quality secondary weapon and probably among my top 3 most used secondaries. Incredibly high rate of fire and very efficient. The SG-225 Breaker shotgun was the original OP primary weapon before it got nerfed, but now the Breaker is back to its former glory after the massive wave of buffs that washed over the entire game. The Breaker is now basically a must-unlock primary weapon again for any new player without question. Vitality Enhancement is IMO one of the current top 3 best boosters in the game, improving not only how much damage it takes for your limbs to get injured, but making you more resistant to incoming damage in general helps you for literally every operation you'll ever run, and it's always working for you in the background. The G16 Impact Grenade is, in my book, right up there with the Thermite Grenade in terms of top tier grenades in the game. 0 fuse time and really high damage. Yeah, it won't take down heavy enemies the way a thermite grenade can, but it is one of the best ways to immediately dish out emergency crowd control at medium to close range. The Stamina Enhancement Booster, like Vitality Enhancement, one of the best boosters in the game hands down. You're going to be running a lot in literally every mission you ever dive into, so higher stamina capacity and recovery is a no-brainer. Muscle Enhancement, while not one of the top 3 boosters in my opinion, it is very good and one I often bring as the 4th pick for the team depending on the mission or the terrain of the planet, really can come in handy. The SG-8S Slugger remains one of my favorite bug-killing primary weapons in the game, and the Plas 1 Scorcher remains one of my favorite bot-killing primary weapons in the game. Hellpod Space Optimization, as I've already mentioned a few times, is the unanimous choice for literal best booster in the game, and the armor options in Mobilize aren't bad either. Scout Armor, Engineering Armor, Medkit Armor, and Democracy Protects, which is my most used armor trait by a mile. TLDR, if you're looking to complete every Warbond in the game, that might take a while, but you should 100% start with Helldivers Mobilize. It is jam-packed with highly viable options across the board, and for that reason, I am giving it S tier. And there you have it, the complete list. If you're trying to unlock everything, I hope you now, at the very least, have a better idea of the order you want to unlock things in. If you disagree with any of my takes, well, you're wrong, and probably a bad person. Then let me know why you disagree down in the comment section is what I said. Thank y'all very much for watching. Peace!